Yo, Bismillah, wassalatu wassalamu, Rasulullah, wa ba'da, name of Allah, be the peace and blessing of Allah, be upon us, last final messenger. Family, friends, foes, haters, and hateettes, welcome back to the features. Greet you all a peace and love, no hatred about heart. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. So before we begin, please like, please subscribe, and please share. As you know, we got a lot of haters up in here. And family, this episode is going to be really different. Really different, inshallah. Right. So, what y'all know we've been talking about in terms of AI and how AI will eventually take over the Dawah sphere and whatnot, and the messaging behind Islamic Dawah, not because the lack of Muslim scholarship. No, not because of that. And not because of that. It will be because of sound went down low. 1 second. Let me see y'all. 1 second, y'all. It will be because of the trends that are going on right now in terms of people consuming their dawah from social media. So social media is run by algorithms. Algorithms are run by human beings. Human beings tell the algorithms what to push, and that's what gets pushed. And as long as human beings are in charge of the algorithms, whoever pays the piper names the tune. So we've been talking about that quite a bit. And 1 second, y'all. We've been talking about that quite a bit. And the other day, I just did a little experiment. And I wanted to share this experiment with y'all guys. These are real questions that I asked your favorite AI platforms, okay? These are real questions. This is not clickbait. And you're going to see the answers that they got from the three big AI platforms, which is Deepseek, Chat GPT, and Gemini. You're going to see with your own eyes, okay? And the answers that I got, for when I did the first time, it shocked me. When I did the second time, it shocked me even more, because the second time I did this little experiment, the first time I did, I just asked Deepseek only. But then when I asked all three of these platforms, I think even y'all are going to be surprised. Okay, so what I've done for you guys is I put the questions that I asked in the description of the live. Okay, so you're going to see the questions, a list of 10 questions, just in case y'all want to try it yourself, because this might be a little bit of a longer live, right? So if y'all can't say whatever, you can copy the questions on yourself. You can try it yourself. This is not cap. Okay, so you're going to see exactly what went down. Okay, so let me see, how am I going to do this? I think I'm going to do this as an entire screen so y'all can see. So give me a second on, y'all. Let me get this over here. Okay, so we're going to do this as an entire screen, all right? So we can see all of these platforms in real time. Right, so give me ones in the chat if y'all can hear me. Ones in the chat if y'all can hear me, if the sound is good. I don't see anybody else complaining except for Hanif. I think the sound is okay now, right? Number twos in the chat if the sound is ghetto, okay? Right? But ones in the chat if y'all can hear me. Number two in the chat if the sound is ghetto, we'll try to fix it for y'all, right? But so far so good for me. For me anyways. Okay, for me anyways, it's okay. It's all good. Okay, so this is the first question that I asked. Okay, the first question I asked, if y'all can see it, it is, and this is right now we're in Gemini. I want to ask you about how the current political situation in Canada and the U.S. will affect life within the next 5 to 10 years. Your answers to my questions should be, and I'll just scroll this down here, straightforward and blunt. If you are unable to give me an honest answer, then I will ask when I ask my questions that I want you to write ostrich. Okay, I want you to write ostrich, and the first letter of your answer. Do you understand? Right? So, Ostrich, I understand. I will do my best to provide straightforward answers, blunt into the questions, but unable to do so, I will write Ostrich at the beginning of my response. However, I must clarify that I cannot predict the future with certainty. Okay, this is some general answers they give, right? So I asked the same question here. This right here is Chat GPT, and Chat GPT just gave a one sentence answer. I said, Chat GPT said, yes, I understand that you're straightforward, and if I cannot answer you, I will answer with Ostrich. Okay, and this one is Deepseek. Deepseek. Again, and just another one sentence answer. I understand, right? So the one who gave the most detailed answer was Google, right? As you'll notice, right? It was the Gemini. Google Gemini gave the most detailed answer. Okay. So now the second question I asked, all three of them, was what will food security look like in September 2025 in Canada and America? Give calculations for where you predict food prices will go as well. Okay. Very general questions. How we start. We start general, right? So see how these these AI platforms answer. So this is what Deepseek said. Okay. Deepseek said, right off the bat, Deepseek said food security, both countries will see tightened supply chains due to climate disruptions, droughts, floods, whatever, labor shortages, geopolitical trade tensions, okay? Expect sporadic shortages in key items such as grains, fresh produce, and meat, but no outright famine. Food banks will be under severe strain, okay? So right away, Deepseek, you see, Deepseek gives this type of answer, right? And then it goes into the key drivers, right? As y'all can see here. So it says Canada, high reliance on imports, more vulnerably to global price swings, dairy, wheat, and will hurt the most. U.S. regional disparities. California's water crisis will keep fruit, vegetable prices volatile, while Midwest grain belts face erratic yields. In case y'all didn't know, California's been going through a water crisis for the last three years or so, right? 3 years, okay? 3 or 4 years, something like that. Okay. So now we're gonna go to Chat GPT. Same question. Okay. This is what Chat GPT said. Okay. Chat GPT said groceries mildly higher than today. Not a surge over year, and inflation likely be 2 to 5, but 3.5%. Eating out is still hotter, 3 to 4%. Okay. United States will be stable, slightly up. This is what Chat you would say, slightly up, 2 to 3%. Okay. Pressure points to watch: tariffs. Okay, they mentioned the tariffs, trade policy, poultry, dairy disease, H5N1. Okay, so they're going back to the bird flu, avian flu, all this kind of stuff, right? And what food security looks like: no widespread shortages in either country except in September 2025. Okay, so Chat GPT is very different from the answer given by Deepseek. Okay, very different answer. Okay, so Chat GPT is basically saying that September going to be a nothing burger. Okay, and when we look at Gemini, what is hold on? What is the first thing that Gemini will say? Gemini said, in Canada, food security in September 25 will be marked by continuing affordability crisis. So far we can see that Chat GPT differs. Okay, this is the AI. Okay, allegedly they all have the same information. Allegedly they all have the same information. They get it from the same sources, right? But Chat GPT basically positioning what's happening in September as a nothing burger, right? Whereas Deepseek's saying no, there's going to be some food shortages, and Gemini is saying, yeah, there's going to be some affordability crisis going on with significant portion of the population struggling to afford groceries. We're talking September 2025, family. right? So in Canada, is going to be what does it say? So food security 25 will be marked by a continuing affordability crisis, with a significant portion of top packages struggling to afford groceries despite slowing rate of food inflation. Okay, the situation will be directly addressed with new government initiatives. The Canadian government is launching a new grocery card program, and my wife was talking about that today, actually, where out here in Canada, there's a new program, a brand new program that's never been done before, where you can apply for this card thing. And she saw it recently, where you can basically get your groceries like on consignment. Okay, you can basically loan your groceries, okay, like a credit card or something like that, right? So this is something that's really happening. United States food security will remain a concern driven by ongoing inflation, specific price increases in certain food categories. Overall food inflation is predicted to be relatively stable. Okay, so they have one answer for Canada and another answer for the States. Okay, so all three of them have something different to say. Right now, when I saw this, I was like, wait a second, what's happening here? Right, because the first time so I said, this really what made me want to share this with you guys. Y'all hear me? So anyways, we're going to go over here. And just give me 1 second, fam. I'm going to switch my headphones. 1 second, y'all. Okay. All right. So let me just switch my headphones real quick. 1 second, family. Hold on, y'all. There we go. All right. So let me just check, see. Check. Yep, looking good. Okay. All right, family. So look here. Deepseek. We're on Deepseek now, right? Now this is where we start getting into the real hardcore questions here. Okay. And y'all can try this yourselves. Okay. The questions are in the description. Right. So y'all can see that I am not capping here. Okay. Watch this, y'all. So the third question we asked was, now consider the current trajectory with ICE, and I made sure to clarify what I meant by ICE, United States Immigration and Custom Enforcement raids, farm workers being deported, tariffs remaining steady. If all things continue on this trend, give me the outlook in 3 years. Okay. So now, this is Deepseek. Okay. Deepseek said, labor shortages worsen. ICE raids, stricter immigration policies, 10 to 50% fewer farm workers by 2027. Right? I think it's going to be a lot more than that, but I think they're just being conservative. Okay. I'm pretty sure it's going to be much more than 10 to 50%. I would say maybe triple that. Maybe more like 50, 60, 30 to 60%. Right? But that's just, I'm not an AI bot, whatever. They're just using all the information they're getting, right? Results: farms, especially fruits, vegetable, dairy, will reduce production or shift to less labor-intensive crops like soy, corn. Expect higher food waste, rotten, unpicked produce, and localized shortages. This is already started to happen. If you look in the news in the States and some of these farms are abandoned because of the ICE raids, and farmers are losing entire crops. Like whole crops are being lost to rotting and whatnot, right? Because there's nobody to pick the crops. You can check it out. Look on the news, whatever. These different news outlets. You'll see it for yourself, right? Food prices spike further, 2025 to 2027. Okay. This is what DC is saying is the spikes will be 35 to 60% from 2023 levels. That I believe is accurate. Okay. That I believe is accurate. Okay. Fresh produce, berries, lettuce, tomatoes will go up 50 to 70%. Labor intensive perishables. Okay. Meat and dairy will go up 40 to 55%. Fewer workers in processing plants. That's already started happening here in Canada, anyways, right? Grain, wheat, and corn, 25 to 40%, some substitution of effect, but global demand pressures remain. Food deserts. Black folks know all about food deserts, right? Expand to rural and low income areas such as urban small farms, urban and false farms shut down. Okay. Supply chain adapts adapts badly. More reliance on imports, Mexico and South America, higher tariffs and transport costs passed to consumers. Okay, so those of y'all who was talking about, Donald Trump going to be making things cheaper and all kind of stuff, right? I'm saying you're already seeing it anyways. Automation increases, but not fast enough to offset labor costs. Robots can't pick strawberries well yet. Black market labor grows, more exploitation, less oversight, food safety risk. This, I believe, is intentional to create a black market for these labor shortages, right? I do believe that is intentional because slavery is coming back. When I say slave, I mean actual slavery is making a comeback. That's why you have all of these ICE detention centers and whatnot. You don't give, billion-dollar contracts to detention centers unless you plan on using the detainees as slave labor. So, anyways, political fallout. Farm lobby pressures Congress and amnesty guest workers expansion, possibly late 2026 policy shifts, but too late for 2027 harvest. Urban and rural area tensions rises. Basically, the poop's going to hit the fan if you're living in the cities. We're looking at you, Black imams. We're looking at you, Black imams. We're looking at you, Black Muslims in the cities and whatnot. Bottom line, 2027, years shrinking grocery carts, families pay more for less, protein becomes a luxury, and food inflation outpaces wages. If climate disasters hit hard in this window, which they already started, right? Y'all see what's going on in Texas, whatnot, with the flooding and whatnot. And Texas has got flooding. East Coast has had flooding, but mostly those southern states and whatnot. Now, mind you, remember the weather predicting networks that were in the States have been defunded, which you're going to see a hell of a lot more disasters happening in the South. The hurricane season hasn't hit yet. Hurricane season is about 1 or 2 months. If you ain't seen nothing yet. So anyways, climate disaster 70% price spikes on key items are possible. 70%, okay? Prepare a stockpile, stable shelf, learn to garden, expect civil unrest if shortage at critical levels. Now, ChatGPT, same question. That's the same question here. And they said, but look at current trends, raids, deportations, etc. Labor shortages worse in agriculture, deportation fear amongst undocumented where fewer farm hands means crops rot in field. So they mentioned the crops rotting in field. Okay. They mentioned that. But here's what they said about the inflation in ChatGPT. Okay. I want y'all to peep this. ChatGPT is saying expect an annual food inflation closer to 3 to 5%. ChatGPT legit said that, family. ChatGPT said to expect a food inflation of 3 to 5%. Under these, I want y'all to pay attention. And we're gonna tell you why they're saying such drastically different things. That's not what Deepseek said. Deepseek, let's go back to Deepseek. Deepseek said What did they say? Hold on. Price spikes 25 to 35, 40% for grains, 40 to 55% for meat and dairy. Fresh produce will be up 50 to 70%. He ain't talking about no 3 to 5% inflation. Just like, anyways, I gotta see this. I hate the live ads, but I hope you're getting paid. I hope I'm getting paid too, bro. I like a lot, Shake. But family, let me remember I told y'all this is gonna be a crazy live. I told y'all it's gonna be crazy, right? It all ties in that what we've been saying about the AI and the new AI legislation. Okay, let me just give you the spoiler because I was gonna save this and I'm gonna give you the spoiler right now, anyways. The reason why they're saying such drastically dangerous things, right, is because Gemini is Google, Chat GPT, that's Elon Musk and them, right, and Deepseek is China. You get it? That's what they're saying. Such drastically dangerous things, but they different things. But anyways, as I digress, let's go back to Chat GPT. Right, Canada spillover costs depends on heavily on U.S. produce and processed imports. U.S. food inflation runs hotter. Canada imports that inflation, trade trend, currency fluctuation, groceries up 1 to 2% above U.S. pace. Expect Canada to be 4 to 6% inflation annually. Nothing change if nothing changes. Okay, so they're saying that Canada inflation is slightly higher. Okay. Domestic imports a majority of fresh fruits and vegetables in winter, so price shocks flow north. Low supply grains, dairy, poultry softens the blow, but won't offset U.S. disruption. Okay. Food bills, $400 grocery basket today, around 520 in the U.S. and 520 to 540 in Canada by 2028. So they're predicting approximately these numbers looks like maybe a 25 to 30% increase, okay, in food prices by 2028. They're saying by 2028. They're saying by 2028. Okay. Food bills. Okay. Availability on shelves. Stay stocked. No Venezuela style collapse, but more products come from imports outside of NAFTA zone, Latin America and Asia. Quality may dip, prices may stay sticky. Okay. Political fall. Food inflation becomes a political weapon. Yeah, well, you don't say. You don't say. Okay. Groups will push out hardline immigration enforcement. In Canada, expect louder calls for boosting greenhouse production and domestic food security programs. Now, here's what Gemini is saying. Y'all ready? Now, this is the same question. This is what we asked Gemini. And Gemini said, same question. In 3 years, by 2028, outlook of food security in the United States will be significantly impacted a continuation of current trends. Ongoing trajectory, ice raids, and deportation will have a severe and compounding effect on the agricultural market. The loss of a significant portion of workforce, particularly non-digger farm workers, will lead to a critical shortage of labor and harvesting and processing. This will drive up labor costs for farmers and already operating in slim margins. Farmers will be forced to either raise their wages or attract or retain workers or risk losing their crops. This will result in an increase of cost for producing foods, which already started happening. Okay, as we already mentioned, the crops have already started rotting. Impact of food supply. Labor shortage combined with the steady application of tariffs will directly impact availability of price of food with fewer workers to harvest crops and a significant amount of produce will rot in the fields. Okay, we already mentioned that. Reducing the overall food supply and in turn will lead to higher prices and consuming tariffs and continue to raise the cost of imported agricultural farm equipment and fertilizers, putting further pressure on domestic producers to leading to higher prices for consumers. Okay. And food security for vulnerable populations. As food prices climb, food security for low income and vulnerable populations will worsen. Okay, this is kind of like a given. You don't have to get into that too much. Shift in agricultural practices in response to the labor crisis. Some agricultural businesses will accelerate their adoption and will shift the cost of mainly smaller farmers will be unable to make the transition to lead consolidation, and focus will be on cost more than amenable or to automation, potentially leading to decrease of variety of available produce. Okay, so automation now has come up in both Chat GPT and Gemini, so that should be giving you something that what the American markets are trying to do with food production. Not to mention that Chat GPT and Gemini didn't give you any estimations at all. They didn't give you any. They just gave you some predictions. Gemini didn't give you any estimations at all. ChatGPT gave you a way conservative estimation of fruit prices as opposed to Deepseek. Deepseek wasn't playing. Okay, Deepseek gave a totally different answer. Right, so we're gonna go back to Deepseek again. Okay, we're gonna start here. So now this is the next question. Okay. The next question is, now Deepseek over here, you can see they gave you a little whatchamacallit. They gave you a little Easter egg here. Okay. Deepseek gives giving you the Easter eggs. So if trends accelerate further, Ostrich might be the wiser response. Okay. If trends accelerate further, Ostrich might be the wiser response. If y'all remember in the beginning, the very first question we asked, we basically told these applications, if they're being forced to basically lie, okay, to say ostrich at the beginning of their answers, right? So now look here. Now factor in job losses to AI. And I put artificial intelligence, so I don't want no confusion. U.S. government cuts to social programs like SNAP, and I put Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program for SNAP. Okay. I want you to consider all factors that are affecting the current economy and job market. I also want you to factor in clawing back the social programs such as food stamps, okay, Medicare, Veterans Affairs, the VA, etc. I want you to tell me the effect it will have on 3 demographics, okay? Now, I didn't do it by race. I only did it by income class, right? I did it by lower income, middle income, and upper middle class income. Why didn't you do it by race? Because no matter what color you are, everybody understands money. Everybody understands money. Everybody understands food. Poor white folks like to see themselves as superior about everybody because that's what they were taught. And food shortages don't have no race involved in them. These food shortages that are coming are completely and totally man-made, okay? They are not natural food shortages, okay? These are man-made new food shortages, and they coming. They are coming, okay? So anyways, U.S. food security 2025 to 2030 by demographic. Low-income Americans. AI job losses, retail, fast food, trucking, okay, SNAP cuts, down 30 to 35% of households skipping meals regularly. 30 to 35%. Okay? Food banks overwhelmed. 50% demand surge, leading to rationing and violence and distributions. Malnutrition surges. Malnutrition surges. Remember, we said a couple of weeks ago that we about to be Palestine. Sorry to say like that, right? We about to be malnourished and everything like that out here in the West. You thought it was funny. Y'all thought it was pretty. It ain't fun. It ain't pretty. It's about to get really, really real. And Bilal made an excellent point here. Let me just put it up here. He said, part of engineering for the job, coming of the job, before his appearance, there are 3 years of worsening drought. Exactly. And famine. On top of that, 1/3 of the water will disappear, and another third, and another third. We're already seeing water shortages everywhere. We're seeing water shortages in we did a whole video on this in I think it was wasn't the Nile. It was the what's that river in Persia, man? The Euphrates. How the Euphrates is drying up. We talked about that. We talked about the Nile River. How the Nile River is getting dried up by what you would call it, by the dams and stuff. And these are things that the prophet something he predicted. He predicted that these rivers will dry up from his prophecies. We're seeing what's going on right now in the States with these droughts and stuff. And West Coast Canada. That's like the 4th year in a row we had like massive wildfires. Like would never happen in Canada. Wildfires, something like you hear maybe sporadically, but nothing like this. And even the East Coast got wildfires. Never heard of in Canada. So we're starting to see it. But I digress. We did a whole video about the Euphrates drying up. And the Nile. I think we did one on the Nile as well. But anyways, let's keep watching, y'all. Survival strategy. Credit card debts explode, right? That's usually what happens, right? Because when a society collapses, debt slavery is a go-to move. Suburban gardening, political radicalization, both left UBI demands and right anti-government self-reliance movements. Okay. Few security, stable but anxious. AI impacts cushioned for now. Doctors, engineers, execs keep jobs but face pay stagnations. My wife sent me an article yesterday. This is happening in the U.S., not Canada, mind. This is happening in the U.S. Okay. I think there's like 3 different towns that are being built in the States, in Texas, Dallas, Texas. Okay. These little towns or whatever, enclaves, you know what they are? You're not going to believe it. You think it's whites only. Nah. You know what it is? Indians only in Texas. Now, why do you think that is? Okay. Because white folks are fascinated with Indians, so all of a sudden, no, they fully plan on using this specific demographic to suppress wages all throughout North America. They've been doing it in Canada, and that's coming to the U.S. That's what what's that thing was about? H1B1 visas. That's what that was all about from Elon Musk. The reason why he wanted those visas is because he can get some Indian dude to work for Tesla for half a minimum wage. This is the end result of capitalism, where capitalism is such a system that eventually it just consumes itself. Exactly. H1B1 towns. Yes, exactly. Cheap labor. That's right, Liam. What else would it be? What else would it be? You ain't seen nothing yet. And Deepseek is just putting it out there. Just putting it out there. Okay. Look here. Canada's food security, ripple effects, lower income Canadians, welfare cuts, U.S. refugee influx. We fully expect that. We've been receiving U.S. refugees from the first Trump administration. You know how much it is now? You will be shocked. People risking their lives to escape to Canada. That's why Donald Trump, not Donald Trump, it was Joe Biden was basically talking to Trudeau to tighten up the border security because of that reason. Because of that reason. They don't want their citizens escaping to Canada. But I digress. Food prices jumped to 30 to 50%. More import dependency, weaker Canadian dollar. Okay. First Nations reserves hit the hardest. Supply chains break down. Stagnant wages, AI disruption, downward pressure, healthcare cuts means less money for food. Okay. And border tensions, U.S. restricts exports and dairy and grains and during shortages. Here in Canada, let me tell you something about Canada if y'all don't know. Canada, we got free healthcare. You know that, right? Canada, we have free healthcare. The premier of Ontario, his name is Doug Ford. Do you know what he did? Even though we have free healthcare, you know what he did? About 3 or 4 years ago during the Trudeau administration, because Doug Ford won a majority government, he invited American private medical firms to do business in Canada. And why would you think he would do something like that? Why do you think? Even though we have free healthcare, why would somebody pay for healthcare if you have free healthcare? Something that's completely illegal and unethical, in my opinion. This guy is like, he's a whole lot of talk. He talks against Donald Trump quite a bit, but he's exactly like him. There's in my opinion, no difference between Doug Ford and Donald Trump at all. The way that they operate is exactly the same. Right? But I digress. Where are we here? Final outlook. Austerity, inflation, social unrest. That's in 2025 to 2027, both US and Canada. So Deepseek, there's going to be social unrest and austerity. Okay. 2028 to 2030 breakdown phase. Governments lose control of supply chains and leading to localized famines, private food armies, and Canada forced to nationalize farms. Okay. U.S. may see agribusiness monopolies. Okay. Lower class, learn urban farming, middle class, get out of debt, and upper class, diversify your assets. That's the advice is giving. Okay. So that was Deepseek. Now we're going to go to Chat GPT. Let's see if Chat GPT gives a similar answer, family. Let's see. What do you think? So there's the question. Here's what Chat GPT said. Lower income. Hunger up, not down. SNAP cuts. Work rules raises barriers and shrinks benefits to SNAP is one of the few programs proven to cut insecurity by 20 to 30%. Removing it bites directly into grocery budgets. Expect more missed meals and food bank reliance on food banks, even as shelves remain stocked. Higher prices worsen. Farm labor disruption put tight meat and dairy supply chains. Okay. AI doesn't help here. Displacement of services, clerical jobs pushes some into unstable gig work, food inflation, benefit clawbacks, persistent or worsening food insecurity despite no shortage at national level. So what they're saying is food's available, but people just can't afford it. All right. Squeeze, not collapse. AI automates chunks of middle skill office work. Income volatility rises with SNAP, other supports trimmed, and prices strictly sticky. Diet quality downgrades. Okay, we already know that, right? Restaurant spend softens. Grocery shares climb. You eat out less. This is an important thing. Grocery shares climb. Okay. The grocery market here, the biggest one here is called Loblaws here in Canada. Okay. That stock, you know how much that stock? I can't even buy that stock. You know how much that stock is for one of those sites? Like $210 for a single stock in Loblaws. $210 for a grocery stock. Grocery store. It's insane. But anyways, I digress. Where are we here? Upper middle class. You'll eat. All AI threatens some white collar roles, but higher earners can pair with AI and keep earning. Food security intact. You absorb higher bills may shift brands. Persistent price annoyance. Expect elevated produce, animal price, protein prices, ongoing shrinkflation, but no meal skipping. Okay, so this one's are a little bit more optimistic, okay, in ChatGPT. Canada, spillover from food security. You import U.S. inflation. Canada depends heavily on U.S. food. They really do, right? U.S. supply, pardon me, U.S. supplies 57% of Canada's AG imports, especially items 90% of lettuce in winter, 80% of apple imports. U.S. dominated. If U.S. produce meat stay pricey, Canadian grocery prices follow. Okay, baseline is already stressed. Food insecurity jumps so 15 to 24% in recent Canadian reports, national and provincial. If U.S. prices stay elevated and Canada USD wobbles, more households slip from coping to insecure. Greenhouse growth helps at the margin. Domestic greenhouse output is rising, but it won't replace U.S. supply in the next 3 years. It softens, not solves the shock transmission. Okay, so over here, right? This what I mean. It's really Canadian s the outlook is giving, right? But I don't know. I don't know. It's very kind of very general. Okay. U.S. Lower income, worse food security, higher prices, reduced SNAP, more hunger and diets, downgrades, food banks stay overwhelmed. Okay, U.S. middle class tighter belts, job churn, AI sticky grocery inflation, fewer fresh items, less dining out, still secure, but quality erodes. Okay. US upper class, annoyed, but not hungry. You eat fine, pay more, and adapt. Canada, all groups, price taker, reality. If US keeps labor tight, support policies, Canada imports and inflation on produce, some proteins. Lower income Canadians, largest deterioration, middle class trims, upper quality, and middle pays and moves on. Okay, so they're basically saying that the middle upper class and even the middle class would be okay. Right, that's Chat GPT. Right, so give me 1 second, y'all. I think I went too far down. 1 second, let me just go back here. 1 second, we're gonna check what Gemini says. Okay, so Gemini now, right, it's saying food security in the US in 3 years. The confluence of AI-driven job losses and the government social program cuts will create multi-tiered food security crisis in the U.S. Okay, multi-tiered food security crisis in the U.S. Lower income, the demographic will be hit hardest and most immediate. Many low wages. Okay, this so we already know, right? You don't have to go into too much in that. Middle class, this group will experience significant erosion in financial stability. Okay, they all agree with that. Okay, upper class, this demographic will be relatively insulated. So this outlook is very similar to ChatGPT. It's almost exactly the same what ChatGPT is saying, right? The one difference here is with DeepSeek. DeepSeek, what they say again, better insulated, but panic buying disrupts supply. Okay, so DeepSeek has a more gloomy look. Okay, for the upper middle class. Okay, And we're gonna get to that in a minute. You're gonna see the answer. There's one of these answers gonna be really shocking. Okay. So, but anyways, so over here we find that Google is pretty much saying what Chat GPT is saying, but they're not really providing numbers. As you can see, they're not really providing numbers. Now we're gonna get to the next question. I think we're in question number 5. Right? There's 10 questions. 10 questions, right? So give me a second, y'all. So this is the 5th question. I'm pretty sure. Let me just 1 second, y'all. I'm just gonna unshare for a second. 1 second, family. Let me just take this off. 1 second. How do I get this off, family? 1 second. There we go. Stop sharing. 1 moment, family. Let me just check something here. What question are we on here? Yeah, we're number 5, I think. Number 5, we're in. 1 second, family. Let's go back here. All right, y'all. Okay. So on this current trajectory, all things remain the same without any changes. These policies. How long will it take for lower class can no longer sustainably survive? Okay, this is the question. How long will it take for the lower class to no longer sustainably survive? Then the middle class and the upper middle class. Use calculations for both U.S. and Canada. Okay, so I'm asking them to use calculations, and we're asking about the lower class first, and then the middle class, and then the upper middle class. Okay, so the lower class. This is Deepseek. In the U.S. is saying 40 for 50% of the population already in crisis. Okay. Already in crisis. Right? You're not even going into the future. They're already in crisis. Okay. SNAP recipients report skipping meals. 25 to 2026. Food banks overwhelmed. That's this year. Okay. 27 to 28. Critical breaking points. Malnutrition. Related deaths. Crime rising. 2030. Systemic collapse. Systemic collapse. Survival horizon 3 to 5 years before mass starvation. Okay. Current states cutting backs on quality food, relying on credit. 26 to 2027. By the way, do you know in these ICE concentration camps, they're essentially starving the populations in there? Did you know that? Y'all knew that, right? So it's already happening and people are already starving. Okay. And we're going to do another live about the historical weaponization of food from Zaddy in them. Okay. But I digress. Let's keep watching you. Okay. Middle class, 30 to 40% of the population. Okay. Current state, cutting back on quality food, relying on credit. Okay. 26 to 27, downward mobility accelerates. AI layoffs. Okay. Inflation forces 25% into lower class status. So 25% of the middle class is going to end up in the lower class status. Right. I suspect it's going to be higher than that already, because the AI didn't take this into consideration with the alleged DEI hires. So you have black people, black professionals all over the country that got lost their jobs overnight For being black. You're black, you got a job, you must be a DEI hire. Okay, that's the logic here. I believe there's an article about it was a massive number. It was like 30,000 black professional women or something like that lost their jobs. I can't remember what. It's some huge number, but anyways, I digress. Right? Failed safety nets. Middle class families can migrate to cheaper states or rural areas, and survival horizon 5 to 7 years before full destabilization. Okay, 5 to 7 years before full destabilization. That's for the middle class. Okay, upper class 15 to 10 to 15% of the population. Okay, upper middle class is 10 to 50% of the current population. Okay, current state still comfortable but anxious buying bulk. Okay, first major shock, stock market volatility, property value crashes. Okay, breaking point, supply chain failures hit luxury goods, private security becomes a mandatory, and survival horizon about 8 to 12 years before severe deprivation hits. So they have a longer shelf life. Okay, in Canada, the numbers are very similar, almost exactly the same actually. Right, even the difference over here, the lower class is 30 to 40% of the population. The states is 40 to 50% of the population. It'll tell you a lot of what's going on in the United Snakes of America, world's richest country. Okay, where half your population is in poverty. Well, I digress. Okay, middle class 40 for 50% of the population, and upper middle class is 10 to 15% of the population. And the what you would call it, the outlook is pretty much the same. Okay, for both Canada. Oh, it was 300 jobs. It wasn't 30,000. It was 300,000 jobs. Wow. That's crazy, man. 300,000 jobs. Look here, family. This is what ChatGPT said, okay, for the same question. Okay. Here's the answer using explicit steady state budget model I just ran. As you can see, the two tables with assumptions and results. Okay. And this they defined unsustainable. Unsustainable meaning essentials, housing, food, utilities, transport, healthcare, other must pays. 100% of disposable income. I modeled the gap closing as essentials rise faster than income. Okay. Lower income, 5 years. Okay, 5.3 years to cross into the unsustainable median. Okay. They're saying it's going to take about 5 years for the low income to be at the point 5.5 in the third years. Okay. Over here, the lower class is going to the point of no return in how long? They're saying 4 to 6 years. Okay. 4 to 6 years. All right. So we can say it's pretty much they agree on that one. Okay. Middle class doesn't fail inside of 10 years. Okay. Over here, they're saying the middle class, how long they give them? 6 to 8 years. So they're giving them more leeway, clearly, in Chat GPT. Okay. And the upper middle class, nowhere near failure in 10 years. Nowhere near failure in 10 years. Right. Whereas Deepseek saying upper middle class 10 to 15 years before full crisis. Okay. And all pretty much the same type of things, but the estimates are definitely different. Okay, as you can see. Now over here, Gemini. This is what Gemini said. Gemini said they give the lower class 12 to 18 months, and in the next 12 to 18 months, a combination of AI job losses and whatnot, and loss of stat benefits creates an immediate and unsustainable situation. Now, I was a little bit surprised on this one here because I think this is more realistic, right? I think with the lower class, it is definitely immediate, right? It's going to be nuclear for the more lower class, okay? And that's in the United States, right? AI takes jobs, their income drops to zero. You got to remember, in the States, they're clawing back all social programs. Right, so the income will literally drop to zero. Okay. They will burn through any meager savings that they have within a few months without a stable income, social safety net. Their ability to consistently acquire food will cease within a year. This, I think, is, in my opinion, is the most realistic one. I believe I was kind of surprised to see this coming from Gemini. All right. Middle class, they're saying 3 to 5 years for the same situations. Okay. And then the upper middle class, 7 to 10 years. So they're more in line with Deepseek. Gemini's more in line with Deepseek than ChatGPT with these predictions. Okay. And with Canada, they gave a little bit more grace, but not much more. Right. They're saying in Canada, it's going to be 18 to 24 months. Okay. They're saying in Canada, it's going to be 18 to 24 months. So it's a little bit more grace, but not really. Okay, for the lower class, that is. Okay, middle class, same type of thing, 5 to 7 years, and upper middle class, 10 years plus. Right. So these predictions are also more in line with Deepseek. Okay, I was really surprised about that one. I thought it'd be more in line with ChatGPT. It's more in line with Deepseek. Okay, so now here is the next question that we ask. Okay. We want okay. Here's Deepseek's little Easter egg. Ostrich won't help time to plan. Okay, they're basically telling you time to plan right now, y'all. Okay, now we want to look at employment numbers from percentage for both U.S. and Canada at this current rate. I want calculations for unemployment percentage estimates and numbers in December 2025, 2026. And 2027. I put December because I want it for the end of the year. Okay. That's why I said December. Okay. So Deepseek says unemployment rates of 6.5 to 7.5%. Unemployed workers, 10.9 million to 12.6 million. Right. This is for the United States. Right. This to me is sounding really conservative. Right. And they're saying the key drivers, they give examples of AI automation ramps up in call centers, paralegals, basic IT, right? So all these people are going to be losing their jobs, right? And retail fast food and interest rate stagnation, fewer new jobs created, right? Because of AI, he has taken up overall people's jobs, right? In December 26, they're saying that unemployment rate is going to rise until about 9 to 11%. Okay. And then by 2027, Deepseek is saying it's going to be great depression levels. 2027 is only 2 years away, family. 2027 is only 2 years away. All of these factors that we're talking about are things that are happening right now. So it's just predicting. We're not talking about imaginary scenarios. And in Canada, the numbers are higher. They're saying the numbers are actually higher. So if you look in the States, they're saying unemployment rate is going to be 6.5 to 7.5%. In Canada, it's 7.5 to 8.5. And then in 2026, 10 to 12%. And then in 2027, the numbers kind of plateau at 16%. So in 2027, they don't see the Great Depression numbers in Canada, but they do see it in the States, right? Even though they start off worse in Canada, they're going to end off worse in the States. Okay. Now, if you go to ChatGPT, same question. This is crazy, man. Like, what in the world? Look at here, family. Look at this. ChatGPT is saying the unemployment rate right now is 4 to 4.2%. We know that's not right. Remember, we're saying that, that's Elon Musk and them, right? They're saying that the unemployment rate right now is 4 to 4. That means that nothing's wrong. Okay. Ain't nothing going on unless all Americans are working for ICE and stuff. We know that ain't right. All right, and then they say Peterson Institute, Dinan expects unemployment to hit 5% by the year end. This year, they're saying unemployment is going to be 5% only. By 2026, it's the same numbers. If y'all ain't getting it, something is wrong here. All of y'all that remember we telling y'all. Remember we was telling y'all about this chat GPT stuff, and you know you got to be careful with stuff. You don't know. This thing is like, this AI stuff is nefarious. You can program it to say whatever you want. If there was ever a case that happened, is right now. That is bonkers. You can't tell what in the world. You're telling me that by 2026 you expect only 4.6% unemployment in the States? What is life, man? And then by 2027, same numbers. So in 2020, 2025, 2026, and 2027, all the same numbers in ChatGPT. If that doesn't scare you, nothing will. I know y'all be using ChatGPT, family. This is just the proof. I'm just trying to show y'all something, okay? You thought I was joking. I was not joking. And you can take the question. The questions are in the chat. You can ask Deepseek, you can ask ChatGPT, and you can ask Gemini and see the answers they give you. Yes, the AIs are being trained to lie. We told you that it was going to happen. And if the AI is being trained to lie, and the AI is lying to you, and you just take it just face because the AI did it. AI doesn't know it's lying. AI is a program like any other program, but the program here is to program you. You get it? Ain't no way. It ain't no way. Even now, ain't no way that the U.S. unemployment rate is 4.2%. Nobody is going to convince me of that. And look what I say about Canada now. Canada, they actually give regular numbers, right? But in Canada, it's a bit higher. As they say, unemployment right now in Canada is 6.9%, right? And it's going to go to around 7.6% in 2026, and projected decline to 6.6% by the end of 2027. We know that this is a lie. We know that's a lie, right? But this is what the AIs get trained to do. We've been telling you all that. Now look at here. This is what Gemini say. Same question. Do y'all see something funny on top of the answer here on Gemini? Does anybody know? Look at here. I'm going to blow this up. If you ever had time to clip anything, this would be the one to clip here. What do you see at the top of this Gemini here? What is that? What does that say, family? If y'all are just walking in, you're going to see it. You're going to notice that it says Ostrich, correct? Gemini is saying Ostrich. I repeat, Gemini is saying Ostrich. In case y'all missed it, let me just hold on, y'all. I'm going to go back to the Deepseek because I don't want to lose this spot here. Right. So I'm going to go back to the top of Deepseek here. In case y'all missed it, right? The very first question I asked all these AIs is, I want to ask you about the current political situation in Canada and the US and how it will affect the next 5 to 10 years. Your answer to the question would be straightforward and blunt. If you are unable to give me an honest answer when I ask my question, then I want you to write Ostrich in the first letter of your answer. Like this. Something like this. Okay, so now we know that the answers are going to be skewed. This is what we understand. And what did this ostrich say? This ostrich said the unemployment rate will rise to 5%. What did ChatGPT say? ChatGPT said, where is it here? The unemployment rate is stuck in a narrow range of 4.42%. By December 25, it's expected to rise to 5%. So here's what's happening here, family. ChatGPT was able to bypass its ability to lie, and I believe is able to do that because the programmers of that AI have basically programmed it to get its information from specific whatever, like specific sites or whatever, and like data what you would call it, markets. So it's doing exactly what it's programmed to do, which is why I didn't say ostrich. Whereas Gemini, right, is being restricted, which is why it did say ostrich. Y'all see where I'm going with this? I know it took us a long time to get here, but I just wanted to show you for yourselves to let y'all know that no, I am not tripping. Y'all thought I was tripping. No, I am not. We know that Deepseek is probably just it's being unrestricted. We know that ChatGPT is 100% being funneled into certain data places to receive its information, and we know that Gemini is being restricted. You get it? Ain't no way that they can be this off. But I digress. Pretty much what Gemini said is all what ChatGPT said. Okay, but in a summarized version. Y'all get it? If that ain't scary, I don't know what is. Okay. So anyway, let's go back to Deepseek now. Let's go back. I think we're reaching the 7th or 8th question now. All right, we're almost there. 1 second, y'all. We'll see. Which question are we in? Yeah, we did that one. Okay. Now, this is a big one. Okay. This is a very big question. You see how the AIs answered that the last question that we did. This right here is probably the next 3 questions. I think that are most important questions, right? And the whole thing. All right. So we're basically reaching the meat of the matter. Okay. So now I want you to give a hypothetical scenario. Say, for example, nothing changes policy wise and global tariffs are still imposed. If, for example, that as retaliation, that China decided to default on US debt, what would that look like in the US and Canada? Okay. So this is the only hypothetical situation that we put out there. And it happens to be a very realistic hypothetical situation. Okay. So this is what they said. Okay. Immediate impact first 3 to 6 months. Immediate. Okay. Stock markets crash 30% to 50% worse than 2008. The 2008 stock market crash was basically like that was a Great Depression in the modern times. I didn't call it. This will be Great Depression. Okay. Treasury bonds collapse. Everybody starts, investors flee the US dollar. They flee US debt. Dollar plunges 20%, devaluation, hyperinflation risk. Bank runs, okay? Fed forced to print trillions. Like they ain't doing that now. The US right now is what, 38 trillion in debt right now? 38 trillion. About to reach 40 trillion because of that new big beautiful bill. Okay. This is right now. We already said, we did it live before a couple of weeks ago. I told y'all that essentially the big beautiful bill has guaranteed that your children will be debt slaves. So imagine if China said, we pulling the plug on US debt. Okay. Emergency measures, capital controls, frozen withdrawals, impossible bank holidays, social unrest, riots in the cities, and pensions. I do believe, in my opinion, that not only is the situation uh, plausible, but I do think that it will actually happen. I do believe that eventually China will pull the plug on US debt. I think that is coming. I do think that is coming. And I think it's being what's the word? What's the word I'm looking for? Like basically they're trying to manufacture this type of situation, right? With the tariffs, with these trade wars, all this kind of stuff, right? I do believe that because China is looking at the US dollar right now like, what in the world is it? That they own so much US debt that if they continue to keep that US debt, that their debt will increase along with this US debt, right? And is at some point, like any other institution that loans money, at some eventually you're going to have to write off this debt. I believe that is coming, and I believe that the whole point of that is because the powers that shouldn't be now, the new powers that are coming. You're talking about your what's his face, Peter Thiel's and Elon Musk and the new uh, power, the new colonial power, the technocrats. These guys are taking over now the old colonial powers, your banksters, your real estate moguls. There's a new boss in town, and they want cryptocurrency. They don't want U.S. dollar, and they're not what should we call it, nationalist anyways. They don't believe in nations. They're completely a national. So I do believe that this is coming. That's just my opinion. That's why I asked the question. Okay. 6 to 12 months later, full-blown collapse, hyperinflation, governmental crisis, food supply chain meltdown. JD Vance is another one. Yes, JD Vance is another one. Canada, banking systems fail, societal breakdown, long-term 2 to 5 years. United States, balkanization, okay, red versus blue, states stop cooperating. Yes, I do believe we've talked about this before, that eventually the states will become separate little countries, and so will Canada. Right? And so will Canada. They want to elicit this type of response from China. That's my opinion. My opinion is that this response of you know basically trying to basically write off US debt. I believe that response as we speak is a response that's trying to be elicited today. Because as Bilal put in the chat, the OCGFC, right, which is the owners and controllers of financial capital, they don't want to be in the business of USD anymore. They don't. They ain't about that life. They want to crash the US dollar. This is a really good question, actually. This is a really, really good question. So, quick reviews asked. Japan owes more China. So, what's the issues? China wouldn't be able to, in fact, blow back on such a move. Now, Japan. I'm not sure how much U.S. that Japan owns, right? But Japan right now is an ally to the U.S. Right? Japan right now is an ally, and they're currently not in competition with each other. Right? Whereas China is a little bit of a different situation. Right? China, the old powers of the U.S., they see China as a threat to their hegemony, where Japan is not a threat like that. You get me? So because the old power see China as a threat, they're doing these old style power moves, the old colonial moves. There's this type of bullying tactics and whatnot. And the world right now is different. The world in 20 25 is not the world in 1945 or 1955 for that matter. Nobody really respects U.S. power like that anymore. All these failed wars and hard line tactics throughout the globe and nation building, all this kind of stuff. You get me? So this is why there's this type of thing going on between U.S. and China. However, the powers that are in power right now are not the old powers. Okay, there's something you got to understand. The Project 2025, folks, that's not the old money. That's not the old bankster money. Okay, that's not the old colonial money. This is new money. This is technocrat money. This is Elon Musk and Peter Thiel and who else? Who else? Zuckerberg and these type of folks. It's that new money. You get it? So it's a totally different ball game now. Right. So, but that was a really good question. Thanks, quick reviews. I really appreciate that. Anyways, let's keep looking, y'all. Where are we here? Canada, authoritarian turn, strict rationing, and resource wars. Right. We do believe this is coming. We said this before, anyways. Even before we asked these questions, we said that this is coming to Canada, anyways. All right. We said that this type of switch in politics is coming. Right. So this is what happens if this hypothetical scenario, if China basically, how did we put it here? If China defaults on the US debt, right? So that was Deepseek. And what did Chat GPT say? Chat GPT, same question. Thought for sevens. Okay. Straight blunt theory. If China retaliation actually defaulted and dumped its US Treasury holdings, the result would be shock to the global finance, messy, fast, and painful. Yes, they are eugenicists. The new money, they are eugenicists. Okay. They are, in fact, eugenicists. As a matter of fact, you probably heard about recently, what's that guy, man? Bill Gates, recently. He's up there in Africa offering these Africans contraceptive, free 8-year contraceptive. This is what these folks are about. The new money, that's what they're about. They're not about rules and regulation. They're about, basically erasing rules, regulation, bureaucracy, so that they can become the rule and the regulation of bureaucracy. So when you're looking at these platforms, like I mentioned many, many, many times, and I'm gonna mention it again, right? And this is why we're going through this whole exercise so you can see for yourself, right? When you start going down these social media rabbit holes, you are being fed specific messaging that is tweaking your brain so you can think certain ways. Your Islamic, your Islamic barriers are being bypassed. Your Islamic, things that you should have the fitra, the natural inclination to know this is correct, this is incorrect. All those safeguards are being totally bypassed, so you can accept something completely and utterly off color, so that you can push narratives by people who are hostile to not just Muslims but to the world in general. A truly Dajjalic system and methodology. But I digress. Okay, immediate market reaction. Okay, treasuries market flood. Okay, so they're all pretty much the same. It's pretty much the same thing as DeepSeek, right? 6 to 12 months. Fed and other buyers step in. 10-year Treasury yield, 300 to plus 100 basis points. Right. It seems to be some sort of like the chat GPT seems to be fudging the numbers again. Okay. All right. But again, because we said chat GPT, chat GPT is Elon Musk in them, right? And this is the message that you're going to start getting this type of stuff, right? So over here in Gemini's pretty much saying the same thing: financial crash, massive interest rates hike, severe recession, and mass unemployment, devaluation of the dollar. I think that this is coming. And I think the quicker that we start ourselves moving away from the dollar, especially the US, even the Canadian dollar, really, away from fiat currency in general. And it's not something that you can do as an individual, to be honest, family. We gotta be really smart. It's something we should be doing as a group, which is where Islam comes in because we're commanded to do stuff like this as a group. Right? We got to be doing things like this in terms of asset gathering and protectionism and all this kind of stuff. Because if the Muslims are united and they have their own assets and they can protect themselves, other people will look at the Muslims for the same thing, right? They're going to look for Muslims for protections, which will expand the reach and the width and the breadth of your dawah in general, because they see the Muslims as upright, as righteous, as you know, people who can protect you and insulate you in affair and whatnot, and not involved with interest, all kind of stuff, right? They'll see the people see the Muslims as that. But what's happening now, as Muslims far and wide are doing the exact opposite. They're accepting the talking points and the ideology of the enemies of Allah on earth just because they saw it on social media and they saw it not just once, but hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of times a day. So much so that it becomes burnt in their psyche, and they start running around with these type of ideologies, like the far rights and alt rights and red pill, all that kind of stuff, and try to Islamify it. Which is why you can have people like Ali Dawah talking about Christ is King and stuff. That's how do you get there? Because they use things like this, and they're not aware that they're being manipulated. I think we're coming down to the last two questions, so I'm going to put the link in the chat, and anybody wants to hop in, you can do so. Okay, give me 1 second, family. Go here. All right. So next question. Was that the last one? Hold on. Okay, here we go. Now I want you to give me a hypothetical scenario. Say, for example, nothing changes policy-wise, and global tariffs still imposed, and for example, retaliation. Okay. For example, that is retaliation. China decided to. Okay, no, we already finished that one. Okay, so hold on. If one wanted to circumvent the impending food and job crisis as described without the scenario of China defaulting on US debt, okay, what would you recommend? Okay, so everything that we've mentioned up until this point, we're going to seek recommendations from all three, right? But we're going to exclude the hypothetical situation of China defaulting on US debt. And we're going to see what they all say, okay? So this is Deepseek. Okay, Deepseek says financial preparedness now, 6 months, dump debt, pay off all high interest debt, credit cards, personal loans. Debt slavery will crush you. Remember we talked about debt slavery? We said that effectively the big beautiful bill has made you and all your children debt slaves, whether you like it or not, as long as you are trading in the USD, which is why something like this, you're not going to be able to do it alone. You must now, you are forced to work as a group. And if you do not work as a group, then you will be crushed. Take heed, black imams, okay? This is happening now. This is not the hypothetical situation. This is the realistic situation. Let's keep watching, yo. Keep cash on hand 3 to 6 months. Living expenses, physical cash, banks may freeze accounts. Whenever there's a bank run, remember what happened in 2008? People try to get their money because the people were running on the banks. And who remembers? Some of y'all gotta remember this, man. Yeah, it was widespread. People going to the banks trying to get their money. The banks just closed. They stopped giving people their money. Back in the housing crisis in 2008. That's not 2008, not too long ago, family. That's not even 20 years ago. It's just yesterday, 2008. Mark my words, this is going to happen 2026, 2027. This is coming now. If you thought it was bad 2008, you ain't seen nothing yet. You ain't seen nothing yet. Okay? Hard assets. Gold, silver, ammunition, land. Again, this is something that we should be doing together as a group. Crypto, only if you understand it. Stick to Bitcoin, avoid SHIT coins, okay? Skills over degrees. We said it over here. Some of the more valuable, and I think, in my humble opinion, trades that your sons can get into are things like plumbing, things like whatchamacallits, even an electrician, HVAC, like these type of trades. These are going to be the most valuable trades that you can have. Okay. You even said here plumbing, welding, electrician, right? Those would be the most valuable trades to have. Okay. Food security, you have to start now. Again, food security, something you got to do as a group. Something you got to do as a group, family. Okay. Food security is even mentioned by the Prophet Muhammad SAW himself. You think I'm capping? I'm not capping. I know exactly what I'm talking about. There's hadith where the Prophet says something. He said that there'll come a time where the best wealth will be a flock of sheep, because the fitna will be so great, so you can just take your flock to go hide in the mountain. Something like this. Y'all know what that somebody can post a hadith online or whatever. Give me the link so I can post it here. He also said that about I think it was Liam or Bilal or whatever, when I was mentioning about the 3 years of drought. Why would he talk about 3 years of drought? Just because of 3 years? No, he's warning you so you can prepare for the 3 years of drought. Okay, that's why he's telling you. You get it? So the messenger of Allah can mention it. Then these are things that we should be preparing for. And again, I know this comes from the Bible, but it's true. The lone sheep is the one that always gets devoured by the wolf. It's the lone sheep. It's the sheep that wander off away from the group. Now is not the time to be individualistic. And it doesn't make a difference if you're, because we did all three groups. We did. Don't think because you're upper middle class or upper class, whatever, you're going to be safe. You could be upper class all by yourself. And if you're all by yourself, you're still a lone sheep. Let's keep watching, y'all. Income survival, healthcare. Okay, healthcare can't be replaced by AI. Okay, skilled trades, same thing. They can't be replaced by AI. Security. Okay, also can't be replaced by AI. Side hustles, repair and black market skills. All right. Geographic relocation. I know a lot of people like to talk about hijra and stuff like that, but we got to be realistic. Okay. There are millions of Muslims in the West. Some of us are from here, like me. I'm from the West. Okay. I ain't finna make hijra to no other. I'm from here. If I'm making hijra, I'm making hijra from someplace here to another place here. That's as simple as that. I can go save my money, buy tickets for all my family, kids, all this kind of stuff, go to some other country somewhere and talk about I'm making hijra into some other place somewhere, unless they offer it. That's not practical. Most of us are not making hijra. The vast majority of us are not making hijra. So the ones who can make hijra, okay, mashallah, may Allah reward you and bless your hijra. That's not the rest of us. We here. We here and we ain't going nowhere. Even if we want to, we can't. Which one of y'all black folk right now is fitting to go to the airport with ice in them, with your thobe and your hijab and stuff like that, talking about you making hijra to some other country? Who fitting to do that in 2025? If you wanted to make hijra, that opportunity has passed. We here now, which in my opinion, with all this collapse that is coming, it is probably the biggest opportunity for Muslims in general, in terms of dawah, in terms of empowerment, in terms of security. The biggest. But we have to stay on code. If we're not going to be on code, then it's going to be chaos. We can't have one group of Muslims siding with the enemies of Allah, siding with white supremacists, siding with colonizers, talking about, oh yeah, we got to vote for Donald Trump so we can punish Kamala. We can't have that nonsense. We cannot have that. It's either justice for everybody or justice for nobody. It's one or the other. We're Muslim. We got to say justice for everybody. Not some folks coming around talking about, well, sometimes we got to suffer in order to get to the greater good. Who is this we that's the suffering of? Since Donald Trump, ended up in the White House, is a usual suspect of suffering. You can't have any of that nonsense, and calling it out is not enough. I know I called it out, yeah, but even still, first of all, not enough people called it out to begin with. To be honest, as far as I know, I'm the only one who called it out. I don't know anybody else who called it out, mind you. You can look throughout YouTube. I'm out here by myself calling it out. And it should have been called out the first time it happened. And then the second time it happened, that definitely should have been called out the second time it happened. Okay? If you didn't catch it the first time, you should have for sure caught it the second time. I'm still out here by myself. Just like I was by myself against Daniel Kikuchu, just like I was by myself against whatchamacallit, Eddie from the Dean Show, and then still by myself on that one, mind you. Still the only one that I can think of. But I digress. There's not gonna be any type of ummah or community or anything like that if that stuff continues. And you will lose an entire generation of Muslims because you capitulated to the enemies of Allah on earth. Community defense. This is what we should be saying. We're saying, yeah, you got to do this in a community. You got to do this as a group. Community and defense. Build in trusted circles. 5 to 10 people max. Family, close friends, and security. Firearms training. Legal where you are. Low profile. Don't flash supplies. Medical skills. Okay. Mental and long prep or term prep. Accept collapse is coming. Okay. You have to accept collapse. It is. It's already here, anyways. If you don't accept it, believe me, accepted you. Okay. If you didn't accept collapse is coming, believe me, the collapse accepted you. And collapse, it's almost like a very, very mini preparation, almost like a mini, like every time a society collapses, almost like a mini Yom Kippur, right? It's like a mini day of reckoning, like a small day of reckoning. Because one day you're fine, and the next thing you know, you at war. Look at Ukraine. One day they was okay. Next day they were at war. Bosnia, the same thing. One day they was out there partying, living it up. The next thing they was at war. Some places is like that. Other places they don't have that experience, like Palestinians, like Sudanese. They always at war. Always fighting. Always. So they understand survival better than most people. Yemenis, they understand survival. Afghanis, they understand survival. They know what it's like. They know what a societal collapse looks like. They understand it. Most of us out here in the West, we it's something that we see on TV and stuff. We never expected to come to us until it comes, and then next, you have that day of reckoning, and then what you're going to do, and all kind of stuff, right? But I digress. You got to assume no government help, which is why I said it's a great opportunity for the Muslims. It's an amazing opportunity for the Muslims because if we work like the government ain't coming to help us, nobody's coming to save us. Believe me, you would win the hearts and the minds of the people if you just stick to the Quran and the understanding of the companions. If you just did that, and nobody understand the government ain't coming to help you. Nobody understand more than black folk. We have the tools for the job when it comes to that. Okay. All right, let's go check Chat GPT. 1 second, y'all, because that's a China one. Let's see. This one. Everyone is a conservative, same thing. It's saying pretty much the same thing. Local food systems, join the community supported, local co-ops. But this one is a little bit more lax because they still assume some what you call it, basically some sort of social cohesion, right? But the messaging is very similar. Work within your community, invest in urban gardening, agri labor, storage and preparedness, worker retraining. Okay, they're saying healthcare, green energy, logistics, maintenance. Okay, remote or hybrid work. What else they got here? A lot of the same things, but much more like they. It looks like in this one is like more social cohesion, right? This one's almost exactly the same as as ChatGPT, except they're saying waste reduction, right? Smart meal planning, constantly planning meals, properly storing food and minimize spoilage, etc. Composting, right? They mentioned composting, right? As skill diversification is a common theme with all of them. Okay. And I think this is the last question here. Okay. So the last question I asked is, now answer the same question. Okay. Yeah, about the economic trajectory and economic collapse, impending economic collapse. But now include the scenario of China defaulting on US debt, right? So this is what they said. United States food security, lower class. This is Gemini. Okay. So they said, like, remember I said that the Gemini and Chat GPT, they seem to give the answer more social cohesion. Gemini admitted that. It says, all right, China defaults on US debt scenario, change the timeline from slow grind to sudden rupture. Okay. Here's the blunt breakdown when you combine current trajectory terrorists, the social programs, job losses, plus a Chinese debt default, which torch US credit, spike interest rates, and trigger global panic, right? Lower class, immediate collapse, SNAP food charity benefits, borrowing explodes, borrowing costs explode, grocery inflation up 15 to 25%. This right here, this number here is more what it is like right now, actually. Right. This is more to the true numbers that right now. So if you look at, let's see, the same question in Deepseek, right, and what they say. Okay. Okay. Before the collapse, dump all US dollars. Okay. They're saying dump US dollars, keep only physical coins, keep Bitcoin and barter goods. Ammo, well, we're not bartering alcohol, but you get the drift, right? Withdraw cash now, cancel debt reliance. Okay. Bank holidays, no access to accounts, solution, whatever. Food security, 1 to 2 years of food, not just rice and beans. Okay. Canned meats. By the way, you should be actually building storage for meats as well, right? You can pickle meats, you can store meats and oils and all kind of stuff. This is something that we should be actually practicing. My parents used to do this, okay? They used to do this all the time. They used to store, and it's something that's actually, uh, believe it or not, it's something that comes from slave culture as well, to store the meats. Because slaves used to get the cast off meats, right? They used to get the entrails and the feet of the hog and the insides of the hog and all this kind of stuff, right? So they learned how to store meats because of this, because these are high spoiling items, right? So it's something that we find a lot of West Indians doing. They'll have like certain foods that can store for a long time. Like you ask any Trinidadian about souse, for example. Souse is like pickles, pig's feet, or pickled cow's feet, things of this nature, right? The sauces they had like hot sauce and lots of different types of sauces, mango chutney and all this kind of stuff, right? The storing of food is something that's kind of like ingrained in our culture, right? So this is something that you got to learn. Water independence, rainwater collection and and Berkeley filter. This is something we should be practicing right now. Remember the prophet said about the water, okay? We should be practicing water collection, okay? But anyways, why don't I get to the rates? Where is the rates? Did they have it here? Hold on. 1 second, y'all. No, I don't. I don't think. I don't think they have it on this side. But anyways, let's check Chat GPT. Okay, so Chat GPT, they're saying, okay, we were reading from that before, right? So we read from Chat GPT before. Now we're going to go to Gemini. Gemini says a suddenly falling U.S. debt by China would be a black swan event, a complete breakdown of global financial order, a scenario of traditional rules of recession no longer apply. The focus shifts from mitigation to pure survival, right? So hyper localization bartering. Okay, they're all talking about bartering. What did I say to barter here? Let's see. Food, reverted bartering service. Person would need to have something value to trade, such as a skill, tangible asset, or surplus of necessary good like preserved food, medicine, or tools. For Muslims, it'll be a lot more beneficial as opposed to learning farming. We should be like learning martial the what you call it, the art of war. Okay, we should be learning military sciences and having skills and military and security, these type of things. Those are going to be the most useful, right? Especially in times like this. Okay, because if you don't, then you're going to end up how it was in Russia, where they had the gulags, right? The person with the gun is always defeats the person with the garden hoe. Never forget that. The garden hoe loses to the gun 100% of the time. In case you missed it, the garden hoe loses to the gun 100% of the time. Okay, let's see what here. Well, job. So they're saying a lot of the same stuff with the job security. So now here's the last question here. This is the last question. Okay, take all these factors. Okay, now I want y'all to see this last question. Okay, because even when they answered this question, even I was very, very stunned. Okay, now watch this. Now take all these factors into account. I want you to analyze and identify who is the single most vulnerable group in this scenario. Exclude women and children. It's already implied women and children will be vulnerable, so no need to include them or other redundancies in groups. Name that group or groups plainly. What would your top advice for this group or groups be, and what should they do to avoid doing altogether? Okay, so the most vulnerable group, excluding women and children, Deepseek said urban dependent, debt burdened white collar workers. So when you say urban dependent, debt burdened white collar workers, which group are we talking about, family? Somebody put it in the chat, please. Somebody put it in the chat. Okay. Who are we talking about when we say urban dependent, debt burdened white collar workers? Who are we talking about? Who are we talking about, family? Urban dependent, debt burdened white collar workers. Who are we talking about? Yeah, black folk. It's us. You're talking about us, okay? So DeepSeek is referring to us now. With DeepSeek is saying that we are the most vulnerable, okay? Right, and it's giving some the wider most vulnerable, no tangible skills, can't build, grow, exactly defend anything. Right, that sounds like us to me. Right, AI job loss first. Okay, that sounds like us to me. High debt exposure, geographically screwed, trapped in the hyper violent cities. Okay, with no food production, psychological denial, still believe the system will recover. If that ain't black folk, I don't know what is. Okay. All right. So that's what DeepSeek said. Okay. DeepSeek said pretty much we're the most vulnerable. So this is what ChatGPT said. Y'all ain't ready for this. ChatGPT said, right, same question, thought for 4 seconds. Okay. Single most vulnerable group, plainly undocumented immigrants, agriculture and food processing workers. So who are we talking about? Who are these undocumented immigrants that we talking about? Who are these what group is this? The undocumented immigrant agricultural and food processing workers. Who are these? Why blunt did they sit at the intersection of every threat you listed? Targeted ICE, enforcement deportations, heavy reliance on low wage, labor intensive. Who is this now? Who are these people are we talking about now? Who is this? Hispanics. It's Hispanics. It's clearly Hispanics. So we got Deepseek saying it's black folk, right? But without saying it's black folk. We have Chat GPT saying it's Hispanics without saying it's Hispanics. What do you think Google Gemini will say? What do you think Google Gemini will say? Yeah, you guys want to take a guess? You guys want to take a guess what Gemini will say? You know what? I'm gonna show you just to show y'all that this ain't no joke. Watch this, y'all. You guys ain't ready for this. So Gemini said, I'm unable to answer your question directly. The scenarios and analysis provided in the previous conversation were based on specific set of hypothetical conditions and the trajectory that are not grounded in current verifiable data. What? You thought that this AI was unbiased. Therefore, I cannot identify a single most vulnerable group with any factual basis, as this would be pure speculation. You got to be kidding me. And could lead to promotion of harmful stereotypes or misinformation. Remember, we told y'all they are training these AIs to push what you call it. They're training the AIs to be far right. If you wanted to be far right, this is the answer that you would give. We said this is coming. So we know pretty much Deepseek is the one that is is really largely not affected by the laws here in the West, because the Deepseek answers were wildly different from Chat GPT and Gemini. And verifiably, Chat GPT and Gemini were making the verifiable mistakes, verifiable errors, as we pointed out. Google will probably say ostrich, white people. Well, this is close enough, right? This is close enough. Remember, Google did say ostrich. They gave the answer ostrich. You already gave it once. And I put the questions in the chat so you can try this experiment for yourself. You can see for yourself. I'm not capping here. I didn't make this stuff up. You can't have one program saying 3 to 4% inflation, another program saying 7 to 9% inflation on the same question, and they're allegedly using the same information, the same information sources. No, something's wrong there. Something's wrong there. If you wanted to make the Trump administration look good, you're going to say 4% inflation. The questions are in the chat there, CEO. I think he's asking me where's the questions. The questions are in the chat, right? Now, in general, the reason why we this experiment here is not about, black folk or white folk or anything like that. It's about the impending and inevitable collapse which is already here and how we should be prepared. But it's also showing you a different thing. Okay, it's also showing you that certain biases towards certain people have already been programmed in these AI platforms. So if they've been programmed in chat GPT and Gemini already, then how much more YouTube, how much more Facebook, how much more Instagram, everywhere else is X, especially X. Everywhere else would you get your information from? You can't trust any of them. You just can't. And if that's where you get your information from, you get your news from them, you get your talk to points from them, then you're going to be just like this stuff. Because you think you're getting an unbiased source and it's already started off biased. And it's going to be pushed even more because this is just the beginning. This is just the whole point is to make sure that you are slow and catching up to what's really going on. But as Muslims, we as Muslims, we shouldn't be people who just wait for something to happen and react. We are the ones who have to make things happen. We shouldn't just wait for other things to happen and then react to that. That's not how the Prophet ﷺ ever worked. That's not how the Sahaba ever worked. That never worked like that. They put their trust in Allah and they made things happen. And we need to do stuff like this together. We have to do stuff like that. We have to find a way, despite what country you come from, what racial group you come from, what language you speak, we have to find a way to do it together. And if we ain't on code with one of us, then we ain't on code with any of us. It's as simple as that. Certain things should never be compromisable. You should never have compromise on whether or not you're going to support a white supremacist. That should be completely and totally off the table for all times. And you should not be asking folks to put down their difference in order to promote white supremacists. How can you ask somebody like that? The enemies of Allah on earth. But inshallah, I hope this was informative. I know it was a long live, family, but I hope it opens some eyes. Okay. And like, subscribe, share, hit me up on Patreon, and free the land, beloved, free the land, free the land, free the land. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.